It's finally time to replace the mess on the side of the workshop with some custom-made cabinets. So today we are shredding a few sheets of plywood on the CNC router, finding ways to save money on the build, and dealing with the kind of problems that always show up in bigger projects like this one. Don't get me wrong, making cabinets is straightforward. And if we break it down to the core, all it takes to make one is creating a frame which consists of a floor panel, cabinet sides, back panel, and subtops. Then we can add doors, shelves, or drawers in different sizes and layouts that best suit your situation. Figuring out the most efficient layouts can take some time, but the real fun starts when you start thinking about how to make the project and how much material will be required. In our case, we selected 4 different cabinets for our workshop, and after creating the layout for all the parts we will need to cut on the CNC, we realized it will take some effort to keep track of everything. And having a small CNC's work surface means we will need to further divide the 7 sheets we currently have, which adds to the challenge. To make the best of the material, the cabinet parts are spread around on different sheets, which further complicates the problem. So to keep track of the components and the material, we decided to number each sheet fragment not only in the software, but also when cutting the full-size plywood into smaller pieces. To avoid having pencil marks on the surface of components, I wrote the numbers on the edge of the sheet. And when creating the NC codes for the CNC operations, I named each file the same as the sheet we will be using for the cutting. This eliminates the need to measure the sheets before loading them on the CNC router, and confusion when you need to find a specific CNC program in the folder. Just take a sheet out of the material pile, secure it to the CNC, select the matching cutting program, and watch how the machine does the rest of the job. When working on larger projects like this one, where we have around 25 different CNC operations, using this simple approach makes a huge difference and can save a lot of time. Speaking of which, after completing each CNC operation, I sort the parts for each cabinet into a separate pile, so we don't have to look for the parts while assembling the cabinets. Now that we have the material and component management figured out, it's time to get all the parts made. The operations are fairly simple, just making the screw holes, cutting the mortise pockets, doing the contour operations, popping the parts out of the stock material, sorting them out, and repeating the steps. Usually while the CNC is cutting the parts for a project, I try to work on further steps to speed things up. However, having different CNC operations requires keeping an eye on what the machine is doing. When working on larger builds, there is a high likelihood of something going wrong, and this project wasn't an exception. While cutting the door panels for one of the cabinets, I heard an unusual sound. That was the sound of me losing a router bit, and nearly my workshop. Let me explain. While cutting the contour line, I hit the hold-down screw, which sends sparks flying around the work surface. If they get picked up by the dust collector and are thrown into the dust box, there is possibility of them catching fire, which wouldn't be good. The scary part is that it doesn't happen right away. The wood shavings can smolder for hours, spreading the flame without you even noticing. I have heard stories where situations like this have caused the whole workshop to burn down. So to be sure that it doesn't happen to us, I had to take a break and remove the dust box from the premises and wait for a little bit to see if it's safe. Luckily for us, after a couple of hours there were no bad surprises and we could continue with the work. So I put the dust box back into the collection cabinet, changed the router bit, and placed the hold-down screws out of the tool path. Surprisingly, after redoing the contour cuts for the door panel, you can barely notice where the accident spot is, so we don't have to recut the component, and we can continue piling up the cabinet parts. And soon we had cut all the 15mm sheets, and it's time to start working on the drawers and the cabinet back panels. For these parts I'm using 9mm plywood. When making drawers, it's easy to underestimate how much material they will require. In our case, we are making only 14 small drawers, but they need 3 full-size sheets, which can be quite expensive when using plywood. If you are building custom cabinets for your workshop and want to save some money on the build, you can easily use MDF or OSB boards for the drawer and back panel components. This will considerably cut down the material costs for the project and wouldn't affect the functionality of the build that much. And if done correctly, it wouldn't be even noticeable without opening the cabinets. Anyway, at this point we have made all the parts for the cabinets, and I can't wait to see how they will turn out. So it's time to free up the workbench and the router table and round over the edges of the first cabinet. Normally I would do the trimming for the whole project at once, but to avoid misplacing the parts and having to find the missing components, I do the trimming operations only for one of the cabinets. Then I can move to the workbench and assemble it. This time we are making the simple double door cabinet, and all we have to do is attach the back panel to the floor component and add the assembly to the side part. After attaching the toe kick, we can add the other side of the cabinet and lift it upright. At this point, the main frame of the cabinet is almost complete. You only need to attach the sub-top components and secure the whole assembly with a handful of screws. Now we are ready to place the cabinet in its position, but it requires freeing up the space under the window. Since there isn't that much stuff, this doesn't take long, and within a couple of minutes we can place the cabinets in the corner of the workshop. Seeing how well it looks, I couldn't wait to start working on the next cabinet. This time the small 4-drawer unit. Before putting the parts together, we have to go over the parts on the router table. The rounded edges seems like a small detail to add to the project, but it makes a big difference when assembling or using the final product. Anyway, once the parts are rounded over, we have to add these small drawer guide components to the cabinet walls. These will eliminate the need for drawer slides, saving us at least $100 on the project. To install them, all we have to do is use dowel holes for positioning and use the smaller holes to secure them to the cabinet walls. No glue, no mess, just putting the parts together. Once the drawer support components are attached, we can assemble the cabinet following the same steps as before, attaching the back panel to the floor component, adding the cabinet sides and the toe kick, and then the other wall component and the subtops. After securing the joinery with screws, we have the frame of the cabinet ready, and we can place it next to the first one. Now we can quickly repeat the frame assembly for the small, simple cabinet. Same process here: router table, walls, subtop, screws, done. Once the simple cabinet is in place, we can start working on the large drawer cabinet. This one has 10 drawers, and 2 of them are large ones. Therefore the assembling differs a little bit. Before putting the parts together, we have to install the drawer supports and secure them to the cabinet walls. The positioning dowels and screws makes it super convenient. For the middle wall, the positioning dowel is going all the way through the panel, which allows us to precisely place the drawer supports on both sides simultaneously. Once the supports are in place, we can attach the middle wall to the cabinet's back panel and add the floor component. Then we can attach the large drawer support and secure the assembly and the toe kick between the wall parts. By adding the subtops and securing the joinery with screws, we have completed the frame of the last cabinet and can add it to the rest of them. Once the cabinets are in place, we can make sure they all line up properly. When everything seems to be good, we can secure the cabinets together. Considering we are making them for the workshop, a couple of screws between the wall panels will do the job well. Now the 4 cabinets form one big assembly, and it's time to add the countertop. This time I'm using half of a 15mm sheet, which I simply place on top of the cabinets. Since our workshop is in a 100-year-old garage, the walls aren't straight. To account for that, I'm using a simple jig to trace the wall imperfections and transfer them onto the plywood countertop. When the line is made, I can place the part in the sawhorses and trace it with a jigsaw. After making the necessary cuts, it's time to test fit again and see if we need to make any further adjustments. There are a couple of small gaps between the panel and the wall, but for the workshop setup, it's alright. Now we can move the countertop back to the sawhorses and give it a couple of passes with a round over bit. Once the front and side edges are rounded over, it's time to position the countertop on the cabinets again and secure it in place. To do so, I'm adding a screw through each subtop component, so a total of 8 screws. This should be efficient enough to keep the countertop in place while working on it. At this point, all we have to do is install the door panels and assemble the drawers. So I insert the hinge fittings in the door panels and secure them in place with screws. Having a CNC-cut pockets for the fittings speed up the process considerably, and in a couple of minutes we are ready to pop the door panels in place. Now we have to start working on the drawers. Before assembling them, we have to give the parts a quick pass on the router table. When all the parts are rounded nicely, it's time to assemble them. And it's as simple as attaching the wall components to the back and adding the floor panel. To be sure the drawers won't be coming apart while it's full of goodies, we have to secure the panels with a couple of screws. Now we can attach the front panel and secure the joinery. If we use the cabinets for home interior, I would probably use glue instead of screws to have a clean drawer panels, but for the workshop setup, I don't mind having exposed screw heads. Once we have the drawer ready, we can test out how well it slides in the cabinet. Since everything is working well, we can quickly assemble the rest of the drawers. All of them have the same design, a back panel that is secured between the sides, a large floor panel that positions the walls, and a front panel that covers the whole assembly. Keeping the concept simple makes the assembly super easy and therefore enjoyable. Now that we have the drawers assembled, the last thing we have to do is attach the handles to all drawers and the door panels. Since all the handle positioning holes in drawer fronts and the doors are spaced the same, the easiest way to attach the handles would be if we pre-drill the screw holes in the handles as well. To simplify the task, I made a simple jig on the CNC router that allows us to precisely pre-drill the screw holes for all the handles. Just align the handle in the jig, make 2 holes, and it's done. Once the holes are made, we can simply align the handles with the drawer holes and secure them in place. This solution worked out great. And in less than 10 minutes, we have attached the handles to all drawer panels and could install the last of them for the cabinet doors. Probably the most satisfying part of the project is sliding the drawers into the cabinets, not only because that concludes all the hard work that went into this project, but also with the last drawer in place, we have sorted out the mess under the window, and now the workshop looks way cleaner and more organized. But the best part, now we have plenty of storage room for the tools, jigs, and toolboxes, which will certainly elevate the crafting experience to the next level. If you would like to make cabinets like these for your own workspace, the CNC project files are available on aribabox.com, so you can skip the design phase and jump straight into crafting. And if you got some plywood scraps laying around, stick around, because in the next video we will have a special guest in the workshop helping turn offcuts into fun little project that will pay dividends all summer long. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.